Welcome back to my little channel. Today, once again, I will be addressing Cat Black. Now don't worry, I won't focus solely on Cat Black. It's just a coincidence that there are two videos shortly in a row that piqued my interest. And this one piqued my interest too, because in a way Cat Black is saying that she's not a proponent to white guilt. She doesn't understand why people suffer from white guilt, and she doesn't want to be a contributing factor to it. But does she realize the role she plays? Let's work this out together, shall we?
Have you ever felt guilty?
If your answer is no, there's something seriously wrong with you.
Here, did you start without me again? What the hell?
Yes, well, you're never far away anyway, so I thought I could start with this one. But yeah, join in, why don't you?
The first time I remember feeling guilty was in high school when one of my friends let me borrow her gel pen. Gel pens were all the rage back in school, and she had this really cool one that would change colors as you wrote with it. It quickly became one of my favorite pens to write with, and even though I borrowed it, I never really gave it back. When my friend eventually asked me if I had the pen, I lied to her and told her that I had lost it. Little did she know, I still used it every day to write in my diary. When I reflected on this moment, I felt guilty because I lied to my friend, and when I could do the right thing, I didn't. Guilt was an emotion that I felt because I regretted something that I did, and upon reflecting on it, I understood just how wrong it really was.
Yeah, that does seem like a dick move to do, doesn't it? I mean, you take something from your friend and you totally lie to her about whether you still have it or not. Why couldn't you say, you know what, I really like the pen, can I trade it or whatever?
Well, you're right, but that's not really the point. The point that she's trying to make is that there was something that she felt guilty about. Funny enough, she felt guilty about it in retrospect. But then again, that's often how guilt works, so that's fair enough, I guess.
But some people feel guilty about things that they didn't do.
And this is where I think Cat Black doesn't understand it. Humans are a social species. We care what other people think about us, especially if we care about those people. So we can feel guilty for something we didn't do, not even something we neglected to do, but something that we had nothing to do about, because we want to make you feel better, because we empathize with the feeling you have. So it's not that we did something wrong, but we feel that whatever happened to you is bad, and we agree with you. And if you blaming me makes you feel better, then I'm willing to take the blame. This is not something that only happens to white people, don't get me wrong. This is something that happens to people in general.
You sure that's right? Because that seems weird. I mean, why the hell would I feel guilty for something I didn't do?
Yeah, I know it sounds weird, but it is unfortunately true. This is basically also when children are in a household where there is, for example, a lot of physical violence from the parents toward the children, children will try to put the blame on themselves, because that way they make their parents feel better. It's just one of the many examples I can give you. There's more, don't get me wrong. The real issue is, though, that at a certain point in time, it stopped being black people blaming white people. It started white people blaming white people, and therefore white guilt. It's kind of like, how do you call it? It's like a negative spiral, and it gets worse and worse and worse until someone says, no, I'm not buying this.
Are you sure though? Because that really doesn't sound right. I mean, why would I feel guilty for my neighbor losing his horse?
Well, there's something that you say that is true. I mean, it's not your fault that your neighbor lost your horse, therefore it's not your fault. But if a lot of people will tell you that it is your fault, then there are two options. One, you will agitate against it and say, no, fuck off with that bullshit. Or you might start believing what they say, and you might start feeling partly guilty of that. And in all fairness, most people will eventually, depending on how many people will tell them it's their fault, go for the second option. So people will actually say sorry for stuff that they really didn't do. We know this. That's also why we know that, for example, interrogating in a, well, offensive and aggressive manner is not working, because eventually people will confess to crimes they did not do just to get rid of the negativity. Especially if the person being forcefully interrogated like this is either a child or someone with a mental illness, because they are already less able to withstand this.
Are you really saying you can make someone feel guilty if not people are out there repeating the story on how they're guilty? Really?
Well, yes, that's basically what I'm saying. And that's why blaming someone continuously, especially in a group, without proof is really dangerous, because it can make people feel guilty, and once they feel guilty they might actually act guilty, so it might also start creating negative behavior because people consider what they're doing negative or bad, and if I'm going to be considered negative or bad, I may as well behave negative or bad. So you get this self-fulfilling prophecy going next to the blame part of it all.
That sounds like some really bad manipulation then, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds really bad because it really is. It's just, it's not recognized by everyone that this is what's going on. And people aren't always doing this on purpose.
As a blogger who criticizes white supremacy, a common complaint that I get is that I'm trying to make white people feel guilty.
And here we have the problem. Because yes, Cat Black, you are agitating against what you call white supremacy, but that white supremacy doesn't really exist. Black people aren't the victim of white people. Yes, there are black people that have it bad, but there are white people that have it bad too. But then people like you will say, yeah, but they don't have it as bad because there's white supremacy. No, there is not. But the worst part is, because you keep saying that there's white supremacy, there are actually people out there who want to make you feel better, and therefore they will adopt blame. And they will push that blame onto other white people they know. This is that self-fulfilling prophecy and that negative spiral I just mentioned. Do you not understand that when you go and claim white supremacy without any true evidence, you will make a narrative and people will try to fill that narrative with reality. It's not that it's real, but people will try to make it real. It will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And herein lies the problem. Yes, Cat Black, you are partly to blame for white. Well, how do you call it? Guilt. It's not just your fault though. Someone else started talking to you about this shit and you picked it up. The same thing that there are now kids in America that believe the Black Lives Matter bullshit. Even though, in all fairness, Martin Luther King would condemn Black Lives Matter because Black Lives Matter is all about, well, the acceptance of gays and transgender people. But Martin Luther King was against that. What he was in favor of was no longer basically measuring people based on their skin color. Whether you're black or white, it shouldn't make a difference. But organizations like Black Lives Matter try to push the narrative that you're white, therefore you're bad, and you're black, therefore you're a victim, and it's all because of the negative white folks out there, which actually makes white folks trying to become better. They try to fill that niche. They try to make sure that they are not seen as the negative white guy. This is why we have white people blaming other white people for being white. This is that negative spiral.
This has always been really baffling to me because in my own personal experience, guilt is an emotion that is introspective. It's an emotion that comes from examining your own choices and actions and realizing that they're no longer consistent with your own moral code.
Well, you're partly right on that, Cat, but you're totally ignoring that humans are social animals. If people around you that you care about will tell you that you're wrong and enough of these people do so, then it will change your mind. It's not just something, guilt is not something that comes from introspective. It is also something that you can be talked into. It is also something that can be given to you. You can be given the feeling of guilt. And that's what white guilt is. White guilt isn't an introspective guilt. It's a guilt that is projected upon you. And then you will either pick up on it or you will reject it. But if you reject it, then people will, well, basically take that rejection as another proof of that there's reason for white people to be guilty.
This doesn't really make sense though. I mean, there's white people blaming white people even though they've never heard anyone else blame white people. So where's that coming from then?
Well, the answer to that is both interesting and extensive, I guess. The truth is, our schooling system is lying to us, and it's basically telling us all sorts of bullshit right from the get-go, which is already filling our head with guilt. Now, if we look at movements like feminism, feminism is blaming white men for just about everything. But white women aren't completely blameless either because of intersectionality. So if you're a woman, you still have to be either feeling guilty for the fact that you're white, or you're supposed not to be white. In all fairness, though, if we continue, if we look at our schooling, if we look at our political systems, and if we look at things like feminism and other identity politics, we are being lied to continuously. For example, slavery is a black problem. Yeah, but wait a second, there were white slaves too. Hell, the only culture that stopped slavery was the white culture. Because if we look in certain areas, there is still slavery. Africa, for example, and in the Middle East still allow slavery. But no, you're white, therefore you're to blame. The same goes for the Crusades. Muslims are being extremist towards the West because of the Crusades. Ignore the fact that there was already 400 years of Islamic expansion before the first Crusade, but never mind that. And we are filling in those holes. We don't know what's going on, therefore we start believing what people are telling us. And even if we look at people now, if you tell people now, no, wait a second, you're white and you feel guilty for what happened there, but it's white people that ended slavery. It's white people that invented just about everything that we like so much. Not everything, don't get me wrong, there have been brilliant black people as well. It's not just whites. But blaming whites for the society we have today, that's like blaming the moon for the fact that there's light at night when the moon's out. It doesn't make sense.
When I feel guilty about something, it's because I'm guilty. So it's very hard for me to understand how simple discussions about things like systemic racism can make some white people feel guilt.
Yeah, it shows that you really don't understand guilt. It's not only something you feel, it's also something people can make you feel.
Guilt should be an emotion that you feel because you're complicit in something. And a lot of white people who claim to not be racist seem to always feel as though they're guilty of something that they supposedly haven't engaged in.
Again, guilt is not only about what you have done, it can also be about what people perceive you have done. And if you feel those people have value to you, eventually you will take over what they say.
But even more interesting to me is the idea that white guilt is something that I personally find useful. Guilt is a persuasive tool in many circumstances. Crying puppies and a Sarah McLachlan song can make you feel guilty enough to send your money to an animal rights organization.
And boom goes the dynamite. This is what I've been talking about. Are you guilty? Is it your fault that these cats or dogs are in a bad situation? No, you're not. But you feel bad for them. You want to help them. If this is partly to say then, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I can do something. Maybe it's part of me. Maybe I should do something to help. That is white guilt. It's not that you did something wrong, but you feel bad about the situation. You want to do something to help. This animal shelter example of yours, perfect. But then again, it kind of completely negates everything you said before this. So you know that everything you said before this must be bullshit. Well, maybe you don't know it, but there is, some discrepancy in what you've just said.
Oi, but this is weird though. I mean, she's talking about helping something you feel bad about. That doesn't automatically mean you're guilty.
Nope, but people seem to conflate the two, and I don't know why.
Is this something only happening to white folks though? I mean, I can't imagine that.
Well, the principle is the same for everyone, so whether you're black or white doesn't make a difference. But white guilt is targeted solely at white people. Black people will not feel guilty for white guilt. It's not part of their story. Funny enough, that's part of the problem because it's a tool for segregation. People who promote white supremacy, whether they're black or white, doesn't make a difference, are at the same time promoting segregation. So if I make you believe that there is something that is called white supremacy or white guilt, then I'm supporting the segregation of whites with whomever I think is the other half. The thing is that the problem isn't the fact that there have been things gone bad in the past. It's that I make you feel that you're responsible for what happened in the past, even though you had nothing to do with it. I'm not talking about how together we can move forward. I'm talking about how you should go back in time and fix what was wrong. And there's no way you can do that. So instead of going back in time, you can feel guilty and make me feel better. Go on, do it.
So basically what you're saying is me feeling guilty about the kittens is roughly the same as me feeling guilty about what black people had to endure in the past.
No, what I'm saying is that the mechanism is the same. So I can make you feel guilty about something even though it has nothing to do with you. The kitten things, I can make you feel bad about, oh, those poor kittens. Oh, come please help those poor kittens. And you will. Well, most people will. Some people will. Anyway, people will. The same is true for reality of, for example, history. I can pretend that black people always had it so much worse than white people, which is partly true, don't get me wrong, it is. But white people fought hand in hand with black people to make it better. And we're ignoring that part. So the white guilt part is pushed upon us now by people who still think that they want it better than they already have it. Because reasons, but not reality. Just like it's not your fault that those kittens are in a shelter, it's not your fault that in America, but in the rest of the Western world, there was once slavery. It's not your fault that, in all fairness, in America, black people are way more likely to get killed by each other than by anyone else. It's not your fault. The police doesn't shoot more black people because they're black. They don't even shoot more black people. They shoot more white people. But they shoot them because they are not compliant. They shoot them because they pretend to have guns and try to shoot the cops. Or they actually do have guns and shoot the cops. Shit like this happens. This is not a white guilt thing. This is a reality thing. But as long as they keep pushing the white guilt on us, and this is the argument that we continuously keep having, then we have a problem. Unfortunately, somewhere in the past, racism became an argument. Oh, that's racist, they said, and therewith the discussion was ended. But it wasn't ended, because racism in itself doesn't mean anything. It's just a buzzword. It's something to make you feel bad about yourself. The same thing is true for lots of other things. I mean, oh, look at this poor kid. Oh, he hasn't got any food. Can you donate some money so we can give him some food? And look at this poor woman. She needs healthcare. Can you give us some money so we can give her healthcare? All these things are based on, do you feel guilty enough? Do you feel bad enough for these people to help? Shouldn't you help? No, of course, feel free to help. But don't feel guilty. It's not your fault. You can help them without feeling guilty. And herein lies the problem with organizations like feminism and Black Lives Matter. They prey on your guilt feelings. And if you do not feel guilty, then the fact that you do not feel guilty for them is proof that you have a problem, that you are the problem. And they will keep pushing that narrative. And people like Cat Black are creating these stories. It's not her fault, don't get me wrong. It's the same that's Franny Ramsey. It's not her fault. But they make money off of it. They grow. This is why their channels are big. This is why people listen to them. Because they keep pushing that narrative. We need to break the narrative. We need to say, you know what? Some things are bad. I didn't do them though. Yeah, but you're a white male. Yeah, so what did I do? Am I to blame for the Second World War? Or the first one? Am I to blame for slavery? And if I am to blame for slavery, am I then also to blame for the end of slavery? No, none of that. So why should I feel guilty? Why do you keep pushing this, yeah, but white people have it better, it's all the white people's fault narrative? Why do you keep pushing that? Because it's not true. You know it's not true. This isn't a white supremacy thing. This isn't a black supremacy thing either. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying black people feel that they have a supremacy over white people. But there are certain black people, like you, Cat Black, that like to push the narrative that white people are the source of all evil and black people are the answer. And it's simply not true. Anyway, her original video goes on a little bit. I've had enough. I'm going to end right here and now. Like, share, subscribe if you feel so inclined. Criticism, as always, is more than welcome, so let me know what you think. And if you disagree with me, please let me know. Also, let me know why, because maybe this is something I missed, maybe there's something you missed, maybe we can help each other grow out of this. Anyway, I'm going to end it here, and I hope I will see you back on my channel next time. Have a good day.